Taoism, also known as Daoism, is a religious or philosophical tradition of Chinese origin with an emphasis on living in harmony with, and in accordance to the natural flow cosmic structural order of the universe, commonly referred to as the Tao. Taoist thought and philosophy was later incorporated into the religious traditions and practices of the ancient Chinese religion hundreds of years after its original development. The term Tao means the natural way of the universe, the way, path, or principle, and can also be found in other unrelated ancient Chinese philosophies and religions other than Taoism. In Taoism, however, Tao denotes something that is both the source of and the force behind everything that exists. Taoism drew its cosmological notions from the tenets of the school of yin-yang, and is heavily influenced and informed by the acknowledged oldest text of ancient Chinese classics, the I Ching, which prescribes a system of philosophical thought on the ethics of human behaviors based on articulating cycles of change in the natural and social worlds by means of hexagrams, and includes instructions for divination practice still adhered to by modern-day religious Taoists. Daoism, as Taoism is sometimes referred, diverged sharply from Confucian thoughts by scorning rigid rituals and social classes. The Tao Teaching, a compact and ambiguous book containing teachings attributed to Laozi, is widely considered the keystone work of this philosophy, together with the writings of Zhuangzi, which interprets and adds to the teaching of Laozi. These classic texts provide the philosophical foundation of Taoism, deriving from the 8 trigrams of Fuxi in the 2700s BC in China, the various combinations of which creates the 64 hexagrams as documented in the I Ching. Taoist propriety and ethics may vary depending on the particular school, but in general they tend to emphasize wu-wei, naturalness, simplicity, spontaneity, and the 3 treasures, Jing, Qi, and Shouq-10. Taoism has had a profound influence on Chinese culture in the course of the centuries, and clerics of institutionalized Taoism usually take care to note distinction between the ritual tradition and the customs and practices found in Chinese folk religion, as these distinctions sometimes appear blurred. Chinese alchemy, Chinese astrology, Chan Buddhism, several martial arts, traditional Chinese medicine, feng shui, and many styles of qigong have been intertwined with Taoism throughout history. Beyond China, Taoism also had influence on surrounding societies in Asia. After Laozi and Zhuangzi, the literature of Taoism grew steadily and was compiled in form of a canon, the Daoism, which was published at the behest of the emperor. Throughout Chinese history, Taoism was nominated several times as a state religion. After the 17th century, however, it fell from favor. Today, ancient Taoist thought incorporated into the ancient Chinese religion is one of 5 religions officially recognized in the People's Republic of China as well as Taiwan, and although it does not travel readily from its East Asian roots, claims adherents in a number of societies. Taoism also has sizable communities in Hong Kong, Taiwan, Japan, and in Southeast Asia. Definition: spelling and pronunciation. English speakers continue to debate the preferred romanization of the words Daoism and Taoism. The root Chinese word wei, path, is romanized Tao in the older Wade-Giles system and Dao in the modern Pinyin system. In linguistic terminology, English Taoism, Daoism, is formed from the Chinese loanword Tao, Dao, wei, root, principle, and the native suffix ism. The debate over Taoism versus Daoism involves phonology, phonemes, loanwords, and politics, not to mention whether Taoism should be pronounced Ta-zem or Da-zem. Daoism is pronounced Da-zem, but English speakers disagree whether Taoism should be Da-zem or Ta-zem. In theory, both Wei Giles Tao and Pinyin Dao are articulated identically as a Taoism and Daoism. An investment book titled The Tao Jones Averages illustrates this Da pronunciation's widespread familiarity. In speech, Tao and Taoism are often pronounced Ta and Ta-zem, reading the Chinese unaspirated Lenish T as the English voiceless stop consonant T. Lexicography shows American and British English differences in pronouncing Taoism. A study of major English dictionaries published in Great Britain and the United States found the most common Taoism glosses were Ta-zem in British sources and Da-zem, Ta-zem in American ones. Categorization. The word Taoism is used to translate different Chinese terms which refer to different aspects of the same tradition and semantic field. Taoist religion, or the liturgical aspect, a family of organized religious movements sharing concepts or terminology from Taoist philosophy. The first of these is recognized as the Celestial Masters School. Taoist philosophy, or Taoology, or the mystical aspect, the philosophical doctrines based on the texts of the I Ching, the Tao Teaching and the Zhuangzi. These texts were linked together as Taoist philosophy during the early Han Dynasty, but notably not before. It is unlikely that Zhuangzi was familiar with the text of the Tao Teaching, and Zhuangzi would not have identified himself as a Taoist, as this classification did not arise until well after his death. However, the discussed distinction is rejected by the majority of Western and Japanese scholars. It is contested by hermeneutic difficulties in the categorization of the different Taoist schools, sects and movements. Taoism does not fall under an umbrella or a definition of a single organized religion like the Abrahamic traditions, nor can it be studied as a mere variant of Chinese folk religion, as, although the two share some similar concepts, much of Chinese folk religion is separate from the tenets and core teachings of Taoism. Sinologists Isabel Robinett and Livia Cohn agree that Taoism has never been a unified religion, and has constantly consisted of a combination of teachings based on a variety of original revelations. Changying Cheng, a Chinese philosopher, views Taoism as a religion that has been embedded into Chinese history and tradition. Whether Confucianism, Daoism, or later Chinese Buddhism, they all fall into this pattern of thinking and organizing, and in this sense remain religious, even though individually and intellectually they also assume forms of philosophy and practical wisdom. Changying Cheng also noted that the Daoist view of heaven flows mainly from observation and meditation. The teaching of the way can also include the way of heaven independently of human nature. In Chinese history, the three religions of Buddhism, Daoism and Confucianism stand on their own independent views, and yet are involved in a process of attempting to find harmonization and convergence among themselves, so that we can speak of a unity of three religious teaching. The term Taoist. Traditionally, the Chinese language does not have terms defining lay people adhering to the doctrines of the practices of Taoism, who fall instead within the field of folk religion. Taoist, in the sinological literature of the 19th and early 20th centuries, was used as a translation of Daoishi, or Taoist priest, that is applied to the ordained clergymen of a Taoist institution who represent Taoist culture on a professional basis, are experts of Taoist liturgy, and therefore can employ this knowledge and ritual skills for the benefit of a community. This role of Taoist priests reflects the definition of Taoism as a liturgical framework for the development of local cults. In other words, a scheme or structure for the Chinese folk religion, proposed first by Christopher Schipper in the Taoist Body. Daoist traditions are comparable in the role to the non-Taoist fascia traditions. The term Tao Jiao, with the meaning of Taoist as lay member or believer of Taoism, is a modern invention that goes back to the introduction of the Western category of organized religion in China in the 20th century, and the creation of the Chinese Taoist Association. But it has little application in the fabric of Chinese society, in which Taoism continues to be an order of the larger structure of Chinese religion, origins and development. Lao Tzu is traditionally regarded as the founder of Taoism and is closely associated in this context with original or primordial Taoism. Whether he actually existed is disputed. However, the work attributed to him, the Tao Teaching, is dated to the late 4th century BCE. Taoism draws its cosmological foundations from the school of naturalists, which developed during the Warring States period. Robinett identifies four components in the emergence of Taoism: philosophical Taoism, i.e. the Tao Teaching, and Zhuangzi, techniques for achieving ecstasy, practices for achieving longevity or immortality, exorcism. Some elements of Taoism may be traced to prehistoric folk religions in China that later coalesced into a Taoist tradition. In particular, many Taoist practices drew from the Warring States era phenomena of the Wu and the Fangxi, even though later Taoists insisted that this was not the case. Both terms were used to designate individuals dedicated to magic, medicine, divination, methods of longevity, and to ecstatic wanderings, as well as exorcism. In the case of the Wu, shamans or sorcerers is often used as a translation. The Fangxi were philosophically close to the school of naturalists, and relied much on astrological and calendrical speculations in the divinatory activities. The first organized form of Taoism, the Tianqi school, developed from the five pecks of rice movement at the end of the 2nd century CE. The latter had been founded by Zhang Daoling, who claimed that Lao Tzu appeared to him in the year 142. The Tianqi school was officially recognized by ruler Cao Cao in 215, legitimizing Cao Cao's rise to power in return. Lao Tzu received imperial recognition as a divinity in the mid-2nd century BCE. Taoism, in form of the Shangqing school, gained official status in China again during the Tang dynasty, whose emperors claimed Lao Tzu as the relative. The Shangqing movement, however, had developed much earlier, in the 4th century, on the basis of a series of revelations by gods and spirits to a certain Yang Shi in the years between 364 and 370. Between 397 and 402, Gekofu compiled a series of scriptures which later served as the foundation of the Lingbao school, which unfolded its greatest influence during the Song dynasty. Several Song emperors, most notably Hui Song, were active in promoting Taoism, collecting Taoist texts and publishing editions of the Daoism. In the 12th century, the Guangzhen school was founded in Shandong. It flourished during the 13th and 14th century, and during the Yuan dynasty became the largest and most important Taoist school in northern China. The school's most revered master, Qiyu Chuji, met with Genghis Khan in 1222 and was successful in influencing the Khan towards exerting more restraint during his brutal conquests. By the Khan's decree, the school also was exempt from taxation. Aspects of Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism were consciously synthesized in the Neo-Confucian school, which eventually became imperial orthodoxy for state bureaucratic purposes under the Ming. The Qing dynasty, however, much favored Confucian classics over Taoist works. During the 18th century, the imperial library was constituted, but excluded virtually all Taoist books. By the beginning of the 20th century, Taoism had fallen much from favor. Today, Taoism is one of 5 religions recognized by the People's People's Republic of China. The government regulates its activities through the Chinese Taoist Association. Taoism is freely practiced in Taiwan, where it claims millions of adherents. Doctrines. Ethics. Taoism tends to emphasize various themes of the I Ching, the Tao Teaching and Zhuangzi, such as naturalness, spontaneity, simplicity, detachment from desires, and most important of all, Wu Wei. However, the concepts of those keystone texts cannot be equated with Taoism as a whole. Tao and Tao literally means way, but can also be interpreted as road, channel, path, doctrine, or line. In Taoism, it is the One, which is natural, spontaneous, eternal, nameless, and indescribable. It is at once the beginning of all things and the way in which all things pursue the course. Quote, it has variously been denoted as the flow of the universe, a conceptually necessarily ontological ground, or a demonstration of nature. The Tao also is something that individuals can find immanent in themselves. The active expression of Tao is called Te, in a sense that Te results from an individual living and cultivating the Tao. Wu Wei. The ambiguous term Wu Wei constitutes the leading ethical concept in Taoism. Wei refers to any intentional or deliberated action, while Wu carries the meaning of there is no, or lacking, without. Common translations are non-action, effortless action, or action without intent. The meaning is sometimes emphasized by using the paradoxical expression Wei Wu Wei, action without action. In ancient Taoist texts, Wu Wei is associated with water through its yielding nature. Taoist philosophy, in accordance with the I Ching, proposes that the universe works harmoniously according to its own ways. When someone exerts the will against the world in a manner that is out of rhythm with the cycles of change, they may disrupt that harmony, and unintended consequences may more likely result rather than the willed outcome. Taoism does not identify one's will as the root problem. Rather, it asserts that one must place the will in harmony with the natural universe. Thus, a potentially harmful interference may be avoided, and in this way, goals can be achieved effortlessly. By Wu Wei, the sage seeks to come into harmony with the great Tao, which itself accomplishes by non-action. Naturalness. Naturalness is regarded as a central value in Taoism. It describes the primordial state of all things as well as a basic character of the Tao, and is usually associated with spontaneity and creativity. To attain naturalness, one has to identify with the Tao. This involves freeing oneself from selfishness and desire, and appreciating simplicity. An often cited metaphor for naturalness is Pu, the uncarved block, which represents the original nature, prior to the imprint of culture of an individual. It is usually referred to as a state one returns to. Three treasures. The Taoist three treasures or three jewels comprise the basic virtues of Ci, Jian, and Bugan Wei Tiang Xiu Jian. As the practical, political side of Taoist philosophy, Arthur Waley translated them as abstention from aggressive war and capital punishment, absolute simplicity of living, and refusal to assert active authority. The three treasures can also refer to Jing, Qi and Shen. These terms are elements of the traditional Chinese concept of the human body, which shares its cosmological foundation, yin-yangism, with Taoism. Within this framework, they play an important role in Niden cosmology. Taoist cosmology is cyclic. Relativity, evolution and extremes meet as main characters. It shares similar views with the school of yin-yang, which was headed by Zhou Yan. The school's tenets harmonized the concepts of the Wu-Xing and yin and yang. In this spirit, the universe is seen as being in a constant process of recreating itself, as everything that exists is a mere aspect of qi, which, condensed, becomes life. Diluted, it is indefinite potential. Qi is in a perpetual transformation between its condensed and diluted state. These two different states of Qi, on the other hand, are embodiments of the abstract entities of yin and yang, two complementary extremes that constantly play against and with each other and cannot exist without the other. Human beings are seen as a microcosm of the universe, and for example comprise the Wu-Xing in form of the Zhang-Fu organs. As a consequence, it is believed the deeper understanding of the universe can be achieved by understanding oneself. Theology. Taoism is practiced as a religion in various Asian communities, but its theology is not foundationally dependent on the existence of an anthropomorphic godlike figurehead on a theological basis. The Taoist religion has more affinities with pantheistic traditions around the world, given its philosophical emphasis on the formlessness of the Tao and the primacy of the Way, rather than anthropomorphic concepts of God. Nevertheless, as Taoist beliefs include teachings based on various sources, and are often intermingled with Chinese folk religious practice, popular Taoist religious sects have co-opted mythical figures from Chinese folklore as well as actual Taoist personages as figures of worship, with the latter better understood as analogous to saints in Catholic veneration rather than as divine deities in and of themselves, even though they were also often mythologized to possess superhuman or supernatural powers. Different branches of Taoism often have differing beliefs, especially concerning deities and the proper composition of the pantheon. Nevertheless, there are certain core beliefs that nearly all the sects share. Traditional conceptions of Tao should not be confused with the Western concepts of theism. However, being one with the Tao does not necessarily indicate a union with an eternal spirit in, for example, the Hindu sense. Popular Taoism typically presents the Jade Emperor as the official head deity. Intellectual Taoists, such as the Celestial Masters sect, usually present Laozi and the Three Pure Ones at the top of the pantheon of deities. The pantheon tends to mirror the bureaucracy of imperial China. Deities also may be promoted or demoted for their actions, while a number of immortals or other mysterious figures appear in the Zhuangzi, and to a lesser extent in the Tao Teaching. These have generally not become the objects of worship. Texts. Tao Teaching. The Tao Teaching, a Dao De Jing, is widely considered the most influential Taoist text. According to legend, it was written by Laozi, and often the book is simply referred to as the Laozi. Quote. However, authorship, precise date of origin, and even unity of the text is still subject of debate, and will probably never be known with certainty. The earliest texts of the Tao Teaching that have been excavated date back to the late 4th century BCE. Throughout the history of religious Taoism, the Tao Teaching has been used as a ritual text. The famous opening lines of the Tao Teaching are, "The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name." There is significant, at times acrimonious debate regarding which English translation of the Tao Teaching is preferable, and which particular translation methodology is best. The Tao Teaching is not thematically ordered. However, the main themes of the text are repeatedly expressed using variant formulations, often with only a slight difference. The leading themes revolve around the nature of Tao and how to attain it. Tao is said to be ineffable, and accomplishing great things through small means. Ancient commentaries on the Tao Teaching are important texts in their own right. Perhaps the oldest one, the Heshanggong commentary, was most likely written in the 2nd century CE. Other important commentaries include the one from Wang Bai and the Zhang Er. Zhuangzi. The Taoist book Zhuangzi, named after its purported author Zhuangzi, is a composite of writings from various sources, and is considered one of the most important texts in Taoism. The commentator Guo Xiang helped establish the text as an important source for Taoist thought. The traditional view is that Zhuangzi himself read the first 7 chapters and his students and related thinkers were responsible for the other parts. The work uses anecdotes, parables and dialogues to express one of its main themes, that is, aligning oneself to the laws of the natural world and the way of the elements. I Ching. The I Ching, or Yi Jing, was originally a divination system that had its origins around 1150 BC. Although it predates the first mentions of Tao as an organized system of philosophy and religious practice, this text later became of philosophical importance to Daoism and Confucianism. The I Ching itself, shorn of its commentaries, consists of 64 combinations of 8 trigrams, traditionally chosen by throwing coins or yarrow sticks, to give the diviner some idea of the situation at hand and, through reading of the changing lines, some idea of what is developing. The 64 original notations of the hexagrams in the I Ching can also be read as a meditation on how change occurs. So it assists Taoists with managing yin and yang cycles as Laozi advocated in the Tao Teaching. More recently, as recorded in the 18th century, the Taoist master Lu Yiming continued to advocate this usage. Daozang. The Daozang is also referred to as the Taoist canon. It was originally compiled during the Jin, Tang, and Song dynasties. The version surviving today was published during the Ming dynasty. The Ming Daozang includes almost 1,500 texts. Following the example of the Buddhist Tripitaka, it is divided into 3 dong. They are arranged from highest to lowest. The Zhen Grotto includes the Shangqing texts. The Shan Grotto includes the Lingbao scriptures. The Shen Grotto includes texts predating the Maotian revelations. Daoshi generally do not consult published versions of the Daozang, but individually choose or inherit texts included in the Daozang. These texts have been passed down for generations from teacher to student. The Shangqing school has a tradition of approaching Taoism through scriptural study. It is believed that by reciting certain texts often enough one will be rewarded with immortality. Other texts. While the Tao Teaching is most famous, there are many other important texts in traditional Taoism. Tai Shangdan Pian discusses sin and ethics, and has become a popular morality tract in the last few centuries. It asserts that those in harmony with Tao will live long and fruitful lives. The wicked and the descendants will suffer and have shortened lives. Symbols and images. The Taijitu as well as the Bagua are associated with Taoist symbolism. The Taijitu is not an exclusive symbol of Taoism, however. While almost all Taoist organizations make use of it, one could actually also call it Confucian, Neo-Confucian or Pan-Chinese. One is likely to see this symbol as decorations on Taoist organization flags and logos, temple floors, or stitched into clerical robes. According to Song dynasty sources, it originated around the 10th century. Previously, yin and yang were symbolized by a tiger and dragon. Taoist temples may fly square or triangular flags. They typically feature mystical writing or diagrams and are intended to fulfill various functions, including providing guidance for the spirits of the dead, to bring good fortune, increase lifespan, etc. Other flags and banners may be those of the gods or immortals themselves. A zigzag with 7 stars is sometimes displayed, representing the Big Dipper. In the Shang dynasty, the Big Dipper was considered a deity, while during the Han dynasty, it was considered a cheap path of the circumpolar god. Taoist temples in southern China and Taiwan may often be identified by the roofs, which feature dragons and phoenixes made from multicolored ceramic tiles. They also stand for the harmony of yin and yang. A related symbol is the flaming pearl, which may be seen on such roofs between 2 dragons, as well as on the hairpin of a celestial master. In general, though, Chinese Taoist architecture has no universal features that distinguish it from other structures.